Hey everybody, Thomas Vanderkin here from the Vanderkin-verse. Today we're going to make ciabatta. Okay, so ciabatta, it's a type of recipe for baking bread that has almost the most basic ingredients. So I used the Great British Bake Off cookbook, Paul's ciabatta recipe. So Paul Hollywood, thank you for this. But the ingredients are so simple to make ciabatta. Just to give you guys a little intro to bread, so most breads you mix the ingredients together, you set it to prove, it rises for hours, and then you punch it down, put it into the shape it's going to be in, and then it rises again, and then you bake it. Ciabatta is a little bit different than that. It only rises once, which gives it that kind of really tough texture that people really love in ciabatta. So ingredients could not be more simple. So for those of you in the United States like me, we're used to using volume to measure things like cups and teaspoons and stuff. This is a an English cookbook from England, so they weigh everything, so I had to get this scale. But so we're going to use 500 grams of bread flour. This is King Arthur, which I like. 10 grams of salt, 10 grams of yeast, 440 milliliters of water, which is a ton of water, and you'll see in a second how wet it's going to look. And then finally, just when we mix it at the end, we'll use a little semolina on the outside to keep it from sticking. But so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is measure the flour. So I've got my KitchenAid here with the bread hook on it. Reset it to 0. Measure out 500 grams of flour. Let's see. 184. 370. 400. Oops, went a little over 550. That's too much, we don't need that. Let me scoop out a layer of that just to get it down to 500. I feel like in the Great British Bake Off they never take any out. So they're better at dumping in England than I am. I'm still working on that. Now that I've got the flour in there, I'm going to add my yeast. So reset it to 0. Add 10 grams of yeast. There's 10. And then also same, set it to 0, 10 grams of salt. Okay, put it into the mixer. And then I mix it around a little bit just to mix up the dry ingredients. Set it to low, add 3/4 of the water. Let it start to mix up a little bit, and then as it starts to mix, we'll start to slowly add more water. So one thing, again about this is going to be so wet. Usually when I make another kind of bread like a bloomer or an Italian loaf, you get a nice bread ball. It mixes it up in there. This one is so wet, it's just going to pour out sloppy into this thing. So very different type of bread. Keep adding a little bit of water there as it gets wetter, and I'm going to show you a close-up of how wet it's going to be here in a second. But one thing I love about this is most bread that I make, also you add oil to it. There may be some other ingredients. This seems like the most basic of all breads. Just these few simple ingredients. Flour, salt, yeast, and water. That's it, and we're going to make this delicious bread. So, keep adding a little more water to this. See how it's getting sloppier in there. We'll turn it up a little bit. Let's add a little more water. Look at how wet that is. last little bit. So very wet. Okay. So now that's done, we're gonna just let it mix for about 8 minutes on a little higher setting. I like to keep it on either 4 or 6. I kind of go back and forth, so I'll put it on 6 just to speed it up. We'll pause here and then we'll come back after 5 or 6 minutes and we'll take a look at it and we'll go to the next step. Okay, we're at the end of our mixing cycle here. That's kind of the consistency it should be. Starting to get a little stretchy. So let's stop the mix and let's put it into the bowl. So this is where it's really wet, where I was talking about. So we'll open this up, you can look at this. I like to put a little Pam in the bottom because it just tends not to stick as much later. We'll get all this good off of here, this dough. Let's dump this dough into here. Yeah, you can see that. Ooh, look how wet that is. Let me pull this over a little bit so you can see it better. And then sometimes you just gotta go for it. So I'm gonna go on the inside here and just get all this out. Okay, gotta get a little flour on you if you're gonna make bread. Okay, so that's it. It's all mixed up. Now I'm just gonna put this cover on it and let it sit for an hour and a half. It'll rise once and we'll come right back and we'll show you how to shape it into ciabatta and then get it ready to put in the oven. So be back in a second for you guys. All right, hey everybody, okay. So we're back. The bread has been rising, so we're gonna get to the messy part here. We're making the ciabatta loaves. So let me put the camera down here. We'll bring the bread over. You can see it's risen more than double its original size. It's been about an hour and 20 minutes. Like I said before, usually on loaves like this, on bread, you'd want to push it down right now and get all the air out of it so it can rise again. But we're not going to do that with a ciabatta. This time I'm going to try and keep as much air in it as we can. It's going to be super wet. So we're going to put some flour here on the cook surface, a lot of it. I'm going to mix in a little semolina. This is some real coarse flour that helps the outside of it stay nice. So we're going to mix that together. Put that there. I'm going to put some parchment on my cooking sheet over here. So just put the parchment paper down here. Put some of this flour and semolina mix onto this here. We'll need that later so that the ciabatta doesn't stick to the parchment paper. Push that out of the way. Spread this around a little bit. Now you're going to see how sticky this is. So let's tip this out carefully, if we can, onto the flour. You can see I'm trying to keep the air bubbles in it as much as I can. Okay. Now let's roll this around a little bit. We're going to try and get it into a log shape. I'm not sure exactly how the pros would do this, but this is how I do it. We want to get this into 4 kind of equal pieces. So I'm just going to move this back and forth in kind of a snake, which is going pretty well. Get a knife. So I'm going to take a knife to cut this into my 4 pieces. So start in the middle, I guess. Got one there, one here. So these are going to be the ciabatta loaves. Roll these around a little bit more. bring my pan back. Gotta keep that over there, but for you guys, I'll put it here so you can see. Roll this around a little bit more and just put these over here on the pan. 2, 3, 4. The ends get a little sticky, so I like to add a little bit on the ends. So that's it. Now I'm gonna let this sit for about a half an hour, and I'm gonna put it in the oven. So we'll turn the camera off here. We'll let this sit for a minute, and then we'll get ready to throw these in the oven and start baking. See you guys in a minute. Okay, the oven is preheating to 425. The bread is right here. It's been resting for about 30 minutes. So let's go ahead. We'll put the bread in the oven. I like to put it down kind of low. The heating's on top, and let's let this go for about 30 minutes. We'll come back and we'll show you the real trick to making the bread, which is testing to make sure it's not soggy in the bottom. So we'll let this sit for 30 minutes. We'll come back and we'll check on it. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes in the oven. Now we're going to do this important next step, which is to check for the soggy bottoms. Learned that from Paul Hollywood. So let's open up the oven, take a look at our bread. Let's see what we have. So let's turn this down like this so you guys can see what I'm doing. So here's my bread. Now the key is to take the bottom. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Hollow. Should sound hollow. That's the small one. Let's try one of the big ones. Not quite hollow. Let's try this one. Not quite. Not quite. So we're gonna put these all back in for another 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a little less, and we'll let them see if we can get a little bit more of that moisture out there. I like what we're trying to achieve, of course, is not too burnt, crunchy outside, yet a fully cooked, tender inside. So we really want to kind of balance how long we keep it in the oven, of course. So we'll give it a couple minutes and we'll check it out. Come right back. Okay, we got a few more minutes in the oven. Let's pull it out and take a look again. A little bit browner now, which is probably about right. It's pretty hot. Let's do a tap test here. Okay, that's it. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it, but that's the right amount. So we're going to put it on the cooling rack. If we can, let it sit there for a little while before we eat it. But in general, that's it. Then I like to take a little brush like this. After it's cooled off, brush the extra flour off so it doesn't look like you're eating, so you're not eating flour. But that's pretty much it. Paul Hollywood's ciabatta, but now Thomas Vanderkin's ciabatta. So thanks for joining, everybody. Hopefully this video turned out all right, and we'll see you for the next loaf. Bye.